Oh my God, you caught me in the middle of an about to cough moment. Hold on, let me get that out. Much better. Weird morning. Facebook wouldn't let me comment on my own live stream. And then I had to cough. But here we are. It's Tuesday, November 8th, and this is Coffee and Headlines, our morning get together live here on Facebook, where we examine how many ways we can be stupid about our decision making and expose ourselves to a virus in a pandemic that is not over. We also look at nice headlines too. Today's a big day, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls, and people of other gender identities, because we get to examine the latest guidelines issued by the state as far as COVID-19 is concerned. And of course, this is going to be a lot of fun. Not really, but it'll be snarky. What can I tell you? But before we do that, of course, we always have to remind folks to let us know if you are new. Let us know if you're new to the broadcast by writing the word new. And that way, oh, James, that is such a cotton. No, that's Betsy Ann. Good morning, Betsy Ann. But James, we will attest to this, that there is no limit to stupidity. Wait till you hear what's coming. But before that, again, if you're new, let us know that you're new. Write the word new, and we will give you a lollipop. No, we'll give you a nice little We'll give you a nice little welcome. If there is something truly important that you wish to say, that you wish a reaction from, that you wish answered, add a capital letter Q at the beginning of your comment, and we'll be happy to address it during the broadcast. If there are Qs afterwards, we are happy to address them in the afternoon. So, the news. Yes, we're not going to get into the new guidelines. First, we're going to get a couple of other news items out of the way so we can dive into the guidelines. And then we are going to attack an important, magic. I love a lollipop. That's all I'm going to say. Anyhow, after the break, after the fold, after the weather, we are going to dive into an important, or one topic that I think is important, is, are we getting all stressed out with our friends and clients that are coming in for the season because they want us to do things that extend beyond our comfort zone? We're going to tackle that one because I think that's an interesting one, and I think it's an important one. And we're going to either empathize, or you're going to tell me, Paco, you need to get out of the house more often, which is fine too. But first, let's tackle the news. Tourism is increasing in Puerto Vallarta, and along with it, the odds that more tourists showing a great lack of intelligence or common sense, otherwise known as stupid, are nosing around the Rio Cuale and Insurgentes Street construction area to check out firsthand the damages caused by Hurricane Nora. There has been at least one accident reported already of someone getting too close to the construction area, close to the edge, tripping and falling into the river. Now, a paragraph in this particular news item caught my attention and made me laugh because the article references some Canadian tourists that commented something like to the effect that that would never happen in their country, which of course is false, as we know quite well that stupidity knows no borders. So kindly resist the urge to get too close to the construction area. Let the construction workers do their work, and just go find other things to do with your time, for crying out loud. Number one. Number two, yesterday we mentioned the so-called local real estate cartel and a specific construction project in Versalles that is very much out of bounds when it comes to legally obtained permits. Today, we learn that said construction project is not only presently shut down or clausurado, but that workers disregarded the seal, broke it, and went into work on the premises. They were authorized to do so by whom? Well, welcome to the Puerto Vallarta real estate cartel. The rain season may be over, but apparently you should not stow away your rubber duck boots just yet, as there are more caca water sprouts reported this time around right across the street from one of our city's health centers. Imagine going to get your flu shot and then getting a nice whiff of caca water right at the intersection of El Centro and Cinco de Diciembre colonias. All I can say is walk carefully and kindly hold your breath. And now let us dive into, yes, más pendejadas. There's a lot of pendejadaness in today's broadcast, definitely. Let us dive into the matter at hand, which is the latest sanitary guidelines. Now, the good news is that this time around, all of the new guidelines are located within this Plan Jalisco website, and I'm going to leave you with the link in the show notes. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through, look at them. All the current guidelines are here. Wow. Lots of percentage numbers because things increase by percentage. Like, for example, restaurants maybe went from 50% to 60%. And in some cases, that means, you can allow 10% more people. If the restaurant is big, that means you can probably have 3 or 4 more people. If your restaurant is small, that means you can probably have an extra chest or maybe an elbow. So let me tell you in a nutshell what is going on, starting with what remains, what has not changed. What has not changed, and you should be able to translate this on your own using Google Translate, but I think this is important. So let us commiserate together. There can be no events with more than 800 people without authorization from the health board. There are no parades to be had, which confirms that our mayor, God bless him, was completely irresponsible at allowing a parade to take place during Day of the Death. But don't get me started, and we'll get to that in a second. The use of a face mask is permanent, covering nose and mouth. Did you hear that, everyone? A distance between people of 1.5 meters in all directions. So if you are in a crowded place, if you're waiting in line, you don't need to be smelling the farts of the person that's standing in front of you. You keep your distance. And what else maintains? The promotion of the participation of people that are already vaccinated. I don't know exactly what that means, but that's what it says. Promoting the participation of vaccinated people. I don't know exactly what we're supposed to promote people to do, but there you have it. So that has not changed. That has never changed. That has always been the case. What has been updated is capacities. Restaurants can now operate at 90% and close whenever they're supposed to close. Bars and night venues and casinos are allowed to be at 75%. Shopping centers at 85%. Hotels can go up to 100% as far as guests, but in their common areas, they continue to be at 80%. Again, if you are a large hotel like the Marriott, that might mean like an extra 20 people. If you're a smaller hotel, that might mean a nose or maybe an elbow. We don't have stadiums, but if we had stadiums, we would be at 90%. Events in enclosed spaces at 50% of capacity or up to 400 people with 5 hours maximum length in enclosed spaces. In open spaces, events are to happen at 80% capacity. Events with more than 800 people, they need to be authorized. We already said that. Expositions and conventions, well, we really don't have much of that, so I'm going to skip that. Gyms, clubs, academies, and sporting facilities at 85%. Oh, saunas and steam rooms at 30%. They were previously closed. So if you've been playing pickle tickle at the local gay bathhouse, well, enough said. Water parks at 85%. Theaters, cinemas, and stages at 85%. Museums and galleries at 85%. Urban forests and public spaces at 100%. But you have to wear a face mask. Tourism trains, we don't have any of those. Government offices with attention to the public at 80%. Religious activities, you can go to church at 85% of capacity, but all kinds of parties that happen outside of churches are canceled. Dancing groups with no more than 150 participants, and things that are completely canceled. Patron saint parties. Did you hear that, Puerto Vallarta mayor? Patron saint parties are canceled. Pilgrimages, the December pilgrimages are canceled. Street parties, posadas, parades are canceled. Massive events are all canceled. And this is all effective during the months of November and December. And there's a lot of details here. For a change, the government has really updated their website, and here's the whole presentation of how we are doing, how the numbers have changed between this year and last year, or recently past periods. There is all kinds of statistics. Look at us, Puerto Vallarta. We continue to be the second highest number of accumulated cases in the state, topped only by Guadalajara. So those of you who love numbers and want to see which age group has responded more favorably to vaccines and so forth and so on, everything you want to know about what you can do and what you cannot do is located within this particular website. And how convenient is that? Let me emphasize a couple of things. 20th of November is around the corner, the day in which we celebrate the beginning of the Mexican Revolution. Traditionally, we have a parade. Not this year. We are not having a parade this year. If there is a parade this year in Puerto Vallarta, it'll be because of an irresponsible decision from our government. And if you attend that parade, it's because you have taken a questionably responsible decision. There will be no pilgrimages. There will be no posadas this year. I'll say it again, none of the sort. And last but not least, and this is actually almost funny, because at the end of his press conference yesterday, Governor Alfaro took questions from press members from Puerto Vallarta and present there and so forth and so on. And a press person from Puerto Vallarta asked the governor very specifically, well, what do you think about the fact that Puerto Vallarta's mayor, Michel, had all these festivities during the Day of the Dead? And the governor was very clear in saying, we rely on the mayors of all the municipalities to follow these instructions. And these instructions are official. And just as they're official, if a mayor chooses to disregard these instructions, a mayor is breaking the law and could be sanctioned. And of course, this was interpreted by, and he said, I'm going to call the mayor of Puerto Vallarta this afternoon. So this was interpreted by all the local news sources as Governor Alfaro will give a slap on the wrist to Mayor Michel because he is allowing these things to happen in Puerto Vallarta. Now, what does all this mean for all of us? Earlier on, I was making a joke of maybe some venues with the extension of percentages will be able to seat at the table an extra elbow or an extra, waist or perhaps a neck. There are bigger venues that can allow more people. So for big venues, of course, be it restaurants or bars or whatever, these changes in percentages are meaningful. But for the huge majority of businesses in Puerto Vallarta, businesses are small enough that the percentage doesn't change much. So in my mind, two things are worth mentioning. And if I'm totally wrong, please, just stop me or try to stop me anyway. I have the push button power. But anyhow, number one, the mayor, the governor is still going to put out these guidelines, which are supposed to be official. And then once the governor has announced that this is what's going to happen for the rest of the year, because, by the way, all these things are going to be in effect in November and December. We have no idea what's going to happen in January. Oh, actually, I take that back. They did say that patron saint parties in January are also canceled, which makes me all bummed out because I was getting so ready to have my eye candy in San Sebastián del Oeste for their patron saints in January. All those men that come down from the mountains, let me tell you, Jesus. Anyhow, governor is going to put out all these guidelines, and then it's up to the mayors to interpret them as they see fit. And we've seen where our mayor seems to stand in that regard. And then, of course, the mayors have all these achichincles. And I'll explain that word. That's the word of the day. They have all these achichincles that will then interpret the guidelines in whatever way they see fit. Achichincle, let me put it up on Michael comes in. Good morning, Paco. How's it going? Well, I'm being snarky, but that's okay. Achichincle is a beautiful Aztec word, or has Aztec origins. It comes from the Nahuatl. It is a word used to disrespectfully refer to someone's employees. It's kind of like calling the employees the minions. The origin of the word comes from the Nahuatl achichinqui, which includes two specific terms, atl, which means water, and chichinqui, which refers to someone who swallows or carries water. So the word was originally used by the Aztecs to refer to workers in charge of carrying water from underwater springs out to where it was needed. And eventually the word evolved to refer to any kind of worker. As long as we're talking about achichincles, you can talk about somebody else's achichincles, like we are talking about achichincles here in general, but it would be kind of disrespectful to say to someone, oh, you are the achichincle at this company, because that would be a little not pretty. But what I'm getting at here is the governor will put out guidelines which will be interpreted creatively by the mayors, which then will be interpreted even more creatively by the achichincles. And here by achichincles, I mentioned the permit workers around the city. More than once have I said, I'll give you a specific case. I went to see something at the Palm a few weeks ago, and I asked Mark Rome, well, so what's your deal with capacity? How many people? What's your occupancy? And Mark kind of turned around and he said, well, they told us we were fine, and kind of looked the other way. So it's one of those things in which, everybody is interpreting these guidelines to the best of their interest. And which brings me to the second part that I want to take away from all this information, which is personal responsibility. The bottom line for me is even now more than ever that we are putting our personal responsibility to the test because ultimately we are going to either follow the numbers or we're just going to follow our gut feeling whenever we get to places and say, ugh, I feel comfortable here or I don't feel comfortable here. And this is going to be really challenging this winter because we have a lot of people that are coming into town and they come from other countries where the criteria are different, and some of them come from places where there are no vaccines, others come from places where they've had their first vaccine and their second vaccine and their mega boost and this, that, and the other. So it's going to be quite challenging for us to put ourselves in a place in which we feel comfortable abiding by this or not. Now, the government, of course, is acting responsibly because they have people that understand how these things work. I would venture that the government already knows there's going to be an uptick in COVID-19. It's inevitable. So it's going to become increasingly important that we know exactly how we are going to react in questionable situations or in situations that we're not sure whether we should be at that place or not. And that brings us to what we're going to discuss in the second half after the weather. We're going to talk about what happens when we're pressured, even slightly pressured, by our friends or our clients to disregard the local guidelines because they come from a place where the guidelines are different. But first, let's tackle the weather. Then we'll tackle your questions. Michael Buford just posted one, and that's a good question. We'll get to that in a second. But first, let's see what Snarky Weather has to say about all of this. Thank you for bearing with that. How will Sam be able to put right what once went wrong without AI? I have no idea. All I know, Snarky Weather, is that it is 28 degrees right now. Feels like 30. Humidity is low, 68%. Our temperature in Fahrenheit degrees is 82 degrees right now. And our weather forecast for the day says it's going to be humid through the day, high temperature of 30, low temperature of 20. Tomorrow, Wednesday, humid throughout the day, high temperature of 30, low temperature of 20. Thursday, it's going to be again humid through the day, high temperature of 29, yes, lower, and low temperature of 20, and that is what we can expect. Let's get rid of achichincle. We don't need achichincles right now, and let us picture one of the following scenarios, and this is what I'm hearing from friends of mine. A dear friend of mine that lives in my building, she works with tourists, and her job is to drive them from the airport to a certain property in Punta de Mita. And more than once, she has felt challenged because she's driving her own car. She's picking up tourists that ask her, have you been vaccinated? And she says yes. And then they say, oh, then you don't need to wear a face mask, which is not the current guideline, which puts my friend in an uneasy place. That's scenario number one. I have another friend of mine who manages a guest house. Similar scenario. Guests are parading around the property without following guidelines because they come from a place where they have other guidelines and they have no qualms about disregarding the current guidelines. Scenario number three, I have another friend who has a friend from out of town in town, and this friend is nudging her into going places and doing things that she feels uncomfortable doing because of the current health guidelines in Puerto Vallarta. Does anything like that happen to you? Are you a local that is dreading the fact that your friends are coming from out of town and they're going to try to nudge you into doing things you're clearly not interested or not comfortable in doing right away. And how do you deal with that? Or are you a person whose employment puts you in contact with people that will do the same thing? And if we flip that, if you're watching from somewhere else and you are counting the days to come back to Puerto Vallarta, come to paradise, come home, or whatever you want to call it, are you unintentionally imposing your personal values on your local friends, thinking, well, I come from a place where everything's fine, so here in Puerto Vallarta, you should be fine because I'm here and nothing has happened to me? Let's break that down. I am looking for comments about these situations and comments on what we can do and what we cannot do, how to deal with this kind of peer pressure and without losing our own sanity in the process. For me, I have coined a very personal phrase that I invite you to coin. I get invited to places that I feel uncomfortable at. I simply say, it's not for me. Thank you for thinking about me, but that activity, that place, is not for me. Am I going to trash the place? No. Am I going to shame the place in public? No. With very few exceptions, I suppose. When somebody's doing something really stupid, then it's definitely worth mentioning it because we don't want to spread stupid. Stupid spreads as easily as COVID, in my opinion. So there you go. That is the topic of discussion today. I'm looking forward to reading your comments because things are going to get, I'm not going to say ugly, but things are going to get interesting. You know, there's a lot of people from north of the border and north of the other border that are feeling free, finally, to come down here and spend the time in Puerto Vallarta that they didn't get to spend last winter. And I am getting a little worried about this clash of culture, this clash of behavior, and how it affects my dear friends, my dear local friends, into doing things that they don't want to do. So let us unpack all of this and rewind this. And I'm looking for cues and I'm looking for comments. But first, I'm looking for all your wonderful good mornings. It is always a pleasure to see you all. Let's see what we have. Tuesday morning greetings to all, says Raymond. It is always a pleasure to see you. Kimberly Field says 8 weeks and 1 day to go, but who's counting? Kimberly, how are you going to be when you come to Puerto Vallarta? I want to know. Let's see. Da-da-dee-da-da-da-da. Linda Barry is having PB withdrawal. I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully you will be able to come back soon. Let's see. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Good morning, everyone. The Yarn Suitcase is packed with 2 days to go. I am excited to see you, Christy. Let's go out and have a fun dinner together. Happy Taco and THC Tuesday. Yesterday, Trucha, I will tell you, sometimes my body takes over me. And yesterday I went for my pipe at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And without thinking, I went, whoops. And I was stupid for like 3 hours. I couldn't get any work done. Why my body made me do that beats the beep out of me. Let's see. I'm happy to be your twin, Matthew. And I'm happy that we're wearing the same colored shirt. Love it. Roger Aho is counting days, 73. Oh, let us hope, Roger, that by the time you get here, we don't have to worry so much about peer pressure. Welcome your newest P resident. I'm going to venture that means permanent, although it could mean passionate or promiscuous or, I don't know, potent. No, I'm just kidding. Congratulations, Scott, on your permanent residency. Bravo. Let's see what else we have. Josh thinks I should get out of the house more often. Josh, tell me why specifically you think I should get out of the house more often, and I'll be happy to take your comments to heart. Stupidity is all inclusive. Yeah, think. Let's see. Heard anything about when they will be repairing the highways around Vallarta? There are so many potholes. Um, I no, I haven't heard anything specific, Janet, but it's an ongoing job, as you surely know. Let's see what else. Do 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 do. We are all looking at the stinky water leak issue. Step out, stop looking, and do something already. I hear you. Ah, thank you for that, Kate. Sometimes, again, I think the information is very clear for business owners, but I would venture that the vast majority of those of us that are here are not business owners here in Puerto Vallarta. So I think it's just as important to talk about what the situation means for us. I mean, as I own my business, of course, but my business is Luna and myself, so we're not worried about percentages personally. I'm more worried about you know how we cope with this. Men from the mountains, oh child, let me tell you. Michael asks, what would be your input on cancellation of posadas? Does that mean Seapal, trash, city workers posada would be canceled? Can't see that happening. Well, again, Michael, as I said before, the guidelines are there. The guidelines are clear. The stupid or non-stupid interpretation of the guidelines, that is the job of the mayor. And then the stupid or non-stupid interpretation of the guidelines by the minions is a different thing. Would you attend a posada? That's my question for you. I wouldn't attend a posada. Will you feel pressured by your employees to have a posada? Probably, because employees expect these things to happen and expect to use the posadas as the opportunity to get special gifts from their employers. I've attended many of those posadas. So maybe as a restaurant owner, this will be the year in which you have to get creative with your posada gift giving. I know that you have at least one sexy waiter in your staff. So if you want to give me as a present to your sexy waiter, I'll be happy to be a posada present. We don't even have to organize a big event. It can be just a private party between your waiter and myself, and you know exactly who I'm talking about. It would seem that if you're at the point of 90% capacity in a restaurant, the government might as well just relax the restriction altogether and allow 100% capacity. Ryan, again, I think those numbers mean very little to us as people that go to restaurants. Because you're right. I mean, I've gone to restaurants, and okay, here's a mini shade, and I'll give you a perfect example. We've spoken very favorably about Whiskey Kitchen lately, and I will go to Whiskey Kitchen in the afternoon on a heartbeat to have their delicious mac and cheese, to have the delicious chingadera the sangrias that we've been talking about. But also, I've seen videos on Facebook of this restaurant, of Whiskey Kitchen, showing Effie Pacero singing, and then the video pans through the whole restaurant. And what do I see? I see a packed restaurant. It's an outdoor restaurant, but I still see a packed restaurant. So are restaurants giving a damn about percentage? I am sure many restaurants are not. I've seen restaurants that are, and I've seen restaurants that are not. But ultimately, it's not about the percentage. The percentage might be important to restaurant owners. The bottom line, Ryan, is what are we doing? So will I continue to go to Whiskey Kitchen? Of course I will. Will I go to Whiskey Kitchen for a special event like Thanksgiving or when they have live music? No way. It's not for me. And I'm sorry to make it about Whiskey Kitchen. Whiskey Kitchen was an example that came to mind because Whiskey Kitchen is publishing these videos on Facebook. There are other venues that are publishing videos on Facebook that I go, well, that's lovely. Congratulations, Mazel Tov, go. But I'm still not going to go there. Well, this is so easy in theory. It doesn't matter what the COVID restrictions or lack of restrictions are in different places. What matters is that we are in Mexico and need to follow the rules that Mexico has put in place. Then that is so much easier said than done. If I had $1 for every person that I've seen that comes in here from elsewhere, wherever elsewhere happens to be, and says, well, this is not what's happening at home, and I'm going to do things the way I want anyway. If I had $1 for every one of those cases, we would own a television station, and the set would be a lot more fabulous than this. Being told to chill, I think. Chill, Paco. Guidelines and recommendations are just that, not laws. Your personal decisions are within your control. The rest are your opinions, which I'm not disagreeing with, just acknowledging the new normal or returning to new normal. I'm pretty chill. Scott, thank you for that. And I know how to make decisions for myself. And I'm just wondering how other people are doing. If you think that I'm completely upset about this or that I should relax, you're not offending me in any way. I know where I want to be, and I know that I'm going to spend a really mellow winter. But I will tell you this, Scott, my friends talk about the stress that they feel with people coming back into town, and that stress is real. So I am going to just leave it at that. Real friends don't nudge you or force you into uncomfortable situations. True. And that's a good way to, my reaction to that, Ryan, is that my circle of friends has changed dramatically over the last year and a half. We need to take care of ourselves. That's where I'm at. Suzanne says, yes, it bothers me a lot, and I will not put me in that position. I follow guidelines. You can still get COVID even if you have had a vaccine. Well, this is, for me, what that means, Suzanne, is this is a time to say, you're here, the city, go have fun. What you are asking me to do with you is something that I'm just not comfortable doing. And if you love me, you're going to let me stay at home. Let's see. Not concerned about the guidelines, more concerned as a few that are exhausting as they expect us to spend every day with them. Most are independent and realize it is their vacation and we can meet up at various times. I have friends that come into town occasionally and they expect me to be with them all the time, and I have just learned to say no. Or I put it out at the beginning, even before they get here. It's like, I'm really looking forward to seeing you. But, I have a life, I work, there's certain things that I'm not doing. I'm sticking to my routine, and if you love me, you're going to let me be. Javier says, I like your it's not for me. I say that's fine for you. Same idea. Love it. Meggie, as in Peggy, says, I'm the conservative friend in this scenario, and I'm currently not socializing or going to crowded places. Told friends not to invite me to things and that I'd let them know when I'm ready. That's good. For context, I'm in Toronto and everything is open here 100% with a proof of vaccination required. Kevin asks, do you ever do cluster meetups? What a great question, Kevin. We have been talking about getting together since the very beginning, and I have been toying with the idea of doing it, but the guidelines have not been conducive for it. Now we can actually do. There's still 132 of you. I could whip out a quick poll. Let's see if I can maneuver this to see if we are ready for cluster interactivity polls. Are we ready for cluster meetups? Yes. No. And I'm going to add, are we ready for cluster meetups in a place that is either outdoors or well ventilated? Let me put that in the poll, because yes, we've been wanting to do these. Come on, poll. There you go. You should have that on your screen. Let me know if you are ready for cluster meetups, and we will definitely take that into account. Da-dee-da-da-da-da, COVID has become a topic like politics, not to be discussed. Feathers get ruffled. Actually, Ray, I am going to personally completely disagree with you because as long as the actions of different people have an effect on the rest of the population, then it is to be discussed. You know, if this disease was a disease that was spread differently, then I would agree with you. But I think it should be discussed. Let's see. Heather puts a Q. I found myself getting lectured ad nauseum by a taxi driver because I asked him to please wear his mask over both his nose and mouth. He said he was double vaxxed, and if I was too, we didn't need to worry. Finally, I said I have to be extra careful because I'm diabetic, which thankfully is not true, but that shut him up. Well, Heather, that's the moment in which, you know, if things don't happen the way you want, then you know what I if that is really important to me, what I would do if I'm getting on a cab, before getting on a cab, is I expect you to keep your face mask on during the ride. Is that going to be a problem? And that goes along the same way. Whereas if we're not taking Uber, if we're taking a regular cab and are concerned about how much we're going to get charged, we always ask, how much is it to get from point A to point B, even before we get on the vehicle? So if this is truly important to you, Heather, and I'm sure it's important to a number of people, and I respect that, my suggestion would be to just ask up front before you get on the cab. A Cathy here moment. I cannot resist that. No one can make me do things I don't want to do. I believe that. And if it is related to the pandemic and precautions, people know better than to get me going. They will know they will get a science-based lecture. Cathy, you know, I think we're ready for the interview. Guys, ladies, cluster, wouldn't you love to have an interview with Cathy? I'd be wanting to sit down with Cathy because Cathy and Dan get around the city quite remarkably with a wheelchair. Dan is the pusher and Cathy is the science-based lecturer. So if you ever wondered what it's like to live and thrive and enjoy Puerto Vallarta from the perspective of a wheelchair, Cathy is the best person to talk to. If you want to hear more about this, or if you want to help me persuade Cathy to do an interview with and for us, please write the word Cathy in your comments. Let's see what else we have. Oh, of course it is nice to be invited, Cheryl. But, you know, I've declined things, and I will continue to decline things. Let's see what else. P for perverted. No. There's no perversion here. Let's see what else. Oh, somebody wants to be there for the Cathy science lecture. I wonder why. I love it. Lots of comments. Thank you so much for interacting. I really appreciate the fact that that you guys are engaged, and the fact that you're engaged means this is important to you. Is PV suspending operations of any business that don't follow the guidelines? That's what they're doing here in Querétaro. They actually do regular visits, and if guidelines are being breached, they issue a suspendido and are shut down for 2 weeks. Well, goes back to the thing I was saying before. Governor puts out the mandate, mayor interprets creatively, minions interpret creatively. I am guessing that the mayor of Querétaro and his or her minions are not as liberal in their interpretation of the guidelines. Puerto Vallarta has not shown that kind of discipline as yet. For the most part, anyway. Amanda agrees with me as a local resident. Thank you. Tourism has played a huge role in our area as to how COVID is managed. Personal responsibility is key in keeping our numbers down. Scott loves me. I love you back. I've been here from US hibernating the last year, and the Mexican locals from other Mexico cities where and are some of the worst group clusters without masks. I say you be you, I'll be me. Always love. I love that. I love that. As long as we're mindful of each other's stands and boundaries and we can be respectful of those, we're going to be fine. We are going to be just fine. How about a cluster beach party? Well, I'm not quite thinking beach party, but I'm thinking of a specific venue that I think is going to be fun to use as headquarters. And the venue owner is in the house, so you think about which venue this particular venue owner might have that might be useful. Hello, Michael. Are your ears buzzing? I see a lot of Cathy. So, Cathy, will you please speak to the microphone? Oh, my God. Look at all those Cathys. Cathy love. Oh, my goodness. There's a lot of Cathy love today. And we're getting close to the end with the most important question of the day. What does Luna think about this? Well, Luna got her morning cuddles, so she doesn't give a shit right now. She's just lying in bed, and that's fine. Luna lets me make up the decisions, and she just meows when she wants some love and some company, and she makes me perfectly happy that way. And I think it's time to look back at the outcome. Are we ready for cluster meetups? Well, I'm going to show the results. 60% of you say yes. 40% of you says no. Last time we did this, we were about 50-50. So I see that now there are more people interested in meeting up, which gives me an inclination that it is getting to be that time. Duly noted, and I think we can start planning a little something in the near future. Thank you very much for this interesting discussion and exchange of viewpoints today. If you are stressed out at work or at home due to incoming guests or clients with different criteria than yours, find ways to not let it get to you. And as always, take care of yourself first and foremost. And if you're a business owner, act responsibly, balance what the local reglamentos people tell you with what your common sense tell you, with what your bank account tells you. Of course, we realize that in the middle of all of this, people are trying to get their finances and their economy going. I have nothing against that, but it is the time, in my humble opinion, for all of us to make our personal decisions wisely. And my wish for everybody is that we will all have a good holiday season and a healthy one as well. If any of this is important to you, if this information is useful, kindly keep those links into account and stay in touch. And I will see you again tomorrow. Have a great day.